your journey and your experience. So over to you, Pam. If you can just welcome Pam. You might be all mute, but I'll give you a round of applause.
Thanks,
okay,
everyone.
Thank you.
What would you like me to do, Marcia? Should I do a reading first?
Reading first, I think. Yeah.
So everyone, it's a real pleasure to be here with you tonight. The book was published in 2018, and I'll talk a bit about the journey to this point. It's been a fascinating, unexpected journey. And I'll talk a bit about the process of writing it as well. But here's an extract from a section in the book. I've picked it out, and I know you won't have the context, but I hope you'll get a sense of at least one of the events in the book. This chapter is called Where's the Money? After my mother died, life carried on, but my Aunt Dar was still distressed and gradually withdrew from me. One evening, when I was around 9, I came running home from school. I entered the gate and walked through the yard in the front of the house. My great aunt was sitting on the veranda with a neutral smile. She was sitting there. Good evening, Aunt Dar, I chirped. Pam, I'll change out of your school uniform and come here, she instructed. Yes, Aunt Dar, I replied, and off I went to my room. When I came back, dressed in my house clothes, I stood in front of her on the veranda, wondering what task she was going to ask me to do. Suddenly, she grabbed my wrist. What did I do? My mind raced. Did I forget to take out the chimney this morning? Is she going to tell me off for not sweeping my room? Is she going to hit me? Just wait. When she lets go, I'm off. I'm going to run. You can't catch me. Pam, why did you steal the money? What did she say? Why is she asking me about money? What money? You took the money that I got from selling your father's land, she blurted. He told me to sell the land and give half to that Daisy Johnson woman, the woman he had an affair with and had a son. And when he was with your mother, and I was to keep half to look after you, and you thief it, you stole it. What, Aunt Dar? I asked. What's she talking about? What money? My mouth was open, but nothing was coming out. The words were trapped in my throat. I couldn't make sense of the accusation. My mind just didn't understand. Where is the money? Aunt Dar insisted. What money? She reached down under her chair for a piece of thick rubber hose, 1 meter long, that she must have cut earlier. Oh my God, is she really going to beat me with that? The grip on my wrist tightened. She struck me with such speed and force that the pain was delayed. Tell me what you did with the money, she demanded. What money, Aunt Dar? I didn't do anything. The lashings continued in a frenzied, indiscriminate attack on my back, my side, my bottom, my leg. In between the pain and the shock of the allegation, I could hardly speak. As tears rolled down my cheeks, all I could do was repeat, what money, Aunt Dar? Whack, 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 whack. I tried to wrestle away from her clutch, but the pain was debilitating. She loosened her grip for a millisecond as she tried to adjust her hold on me, and I snatched my hand away. She regained her balance. I ran down the veranda steps. Then she swung, catching my hip with the end of the hose. I headed straight to the back of the house. I looked behind me, but she was on my heels, closer than I thought. I was terrified, so I gathered speed. Because of her high blood pressure, she was getting out of breath and slowing down, complaining of a headache. You're going to give me a stroke, she panted as she grasped for air. Despite the pain in my legs from the beating, I ran to the overgrown derelict yard behind our house. Colin, Aunt Dar's errand man, was walking by the house. Colin, come help me find Pam, she cried. Yes, Miss Dar, where's she gone? Round the back, go find her. So Colin tried to locate me. From my hiding place, an old rusty drum lying on its side, I overheard them in the distance calling out my name. I kept still so they couldn't find me, petrified, shocked, hopeless. Oh my God, what just happened? What am I going to do? Running to another yard to ask for help was not an option. I was always told not to involve other people in our private business. They wouldn't help anyway, because they beat their children too. After about an hour, I must have fell asleep with exhaustion, still inside the drum. I was too afraid to sleep outside in the dark, so I decided to sneak back in the house. There was nowhere else to go, no sanctuary, no one to rescue me. The back door was open, so I quietly snuck into the room and got into bed. I could hear Aunt Dar talking to Colin at the front of the house before I dozed off. The next morning, she dragged me out of bed and into the kitchen. I saw the dreaded green hose leaning against the wall in the corner of the kitchen. She placed my breakfast on the table in front of me without saying a word. Whew. Did my runaway calm her down? I ate the food as she watched from where she was leaning on the sink. Then the questioning started again. Pam, tell me what you did with the money. What money, Aunt Dar? I don't know anything about any money. Pam, I heard the shopkeeper next to your school say a lot of money was spent in her shop last week. Did you take my money and give it to someone at school? No, Aunt Dar, I didn't take any money. I didn't give it to anyone at school. She was irritated and grabbed the hose. The beating started again. Please, oh God, make her stop. I don't know what to do to get her to stop. Help. I know you took the money. Do not lie to me, she screamed. I'm not lying, Aunt Dar. I didn't take it. You did. You took it. Admit it. What? Is she trying to kill me? Well, well, she declared, we're going to the shop. Before walking to the shop, I washed my face, got dressed. My body was still burning with the pain, the welts disguised under my dress, but the blood stains weren't. As we walked, I passed my friends who had just seen me get beaten at the house, knowing that they saw me as having a privileged life. The embarrassment of being publicly shamed was overwhelming. I arrived at Miss Riley's shop. She was sat behind the counter waiting for customers. Good afternoon, Miss Riley, said Aunt Di. I hear that you're saying school children had extra money to spend in your shop last week. Is it true? I was standing by Aunt Di, watching the whole conversation, frightened that she might say yes. I was relieved when Miss Riley said, no, Miss Di. After the wasted journey, we walked back home. I don't know why Aunt Di kept up this farce and was so intent on blaming me for something I didn't do. When we got home, she picked up the hose again. Who did you give the money to? I was tired, defeated, spirit broken, my ears ringing, and I couldn't see clearly. My mind was spinning. I was passing out, in and out of consciousness. What do I say? What can I do? I'm about to die. Finally, Aunt Di let me go to bed, and I quickly fell asleep. In the morning, a new day, and my great aunt had a new idea. Why don't you admit it, she said. You gave the money to your little friend, didn't you? I denied the accusation. Yet again, she beat me. You must have given it to someone. Give me the name and I'll stop. The only name I could come up with was my best friend, Rose Brown. Rose, Aunt Dar, Rose Brown. Go and get ready. We're going to her house. I know where she lives. I'd met Rose at school. She was the same age as me, and we used to compete to answer the teacher's questions. We went to the same church. We played together. We found the same things funny. I liked her more than anyone else. She was my very best friend. Aunt Dar and I walked a mile to Rose's house. Hello, Aunt Dar said casually to the people as she knew as we walked. I was exhausted, but at least it was better than being beaten. Yet all I could think was, what have I done? Have I just condemned Rose to the same fate as me? We got to the gate of Rose's house and Dar called out to Rose's mother. They were in the choir together, so we're familiar with each other. Yes, Miss Dar? Rose's mother greeted her. Hello, how are you? Pam stole my money and gave it to your daughter, Aunt Doris stated. The expression of Rose's face changed from joy. Rose's mother's face changed from joy of having a guest to concern. She called out to Rose, who came running, smiling, happy to see me. She bent down, held Rose's hand and looked in her eyes. Did Pam give you any money? Rose thought I'd come to play with her, so she took a few seconds to respond to her mother. No, Mummy. Rose's mother knew she was telling the truth and hugged her. It was clear she was defending her daughter. Seeing Rose and her mother so close to each other made me feel alone. I had no one on my side, no one to hug. Aunt Doris said goodbye and led me silently back to our house. After returning house, there was no explanation or discussion, but the beatings finally stopped. Our communication with me just went back to normal, as if the accusation of violence had never happened. Life continued, but I was a changed person, subdued. I went to school not as confident as before, living with the embarrassment of being branded a thief. It was a shame that I would carry for many years.
Wow. Wow, Pam, powerful. What made you decide to write your memoir?
I wish I had kind of made a controlled decision to write it. It was a series of events, I think, that culminated in me feeling I had no choice but to write it. So, you know, there are many other accounts in my book about my life. And throughout the years, I have a son, and throughout the years of bringing him up, I remember using it, you know, bits of my experience to try and help him deal with either, you know, rivalry with his friends or whatever is going on at school. And actually, when he was about 15, I remember we were in the car one day, and I'd always said, you know, his name is James. I'd always said, James, you know, let me tell you about this that happened to me. Maybe it will help you. And I remember at the time he got fed up with me. He said, Mom, I'm tired of you just talking about this. You're going to write a book one day. You have to write a book. He was only 15. And he sat in the car with me and he said, right, tell me about the beginning. We'll call that the early years. We'll call that living in Jamaica. We'll call that Brooklyn. We'll call that London, etc. And, you know, 15, when did I, not in 2017, I still had it. I still had those headings. I am a social worker, a kind of inspector of social services. And one day we got a contract. I'm a consultant now. So we got a contract to go and review some cases in a local authority. And my team and I were in a room looking at this. And I tell you what really made me do it, Marcia. We were just looking at, because they were criticized for not responding appropriately to cases of child abuse or domestic violence. So we were having a look to make a decision about whether we agreed that that was the case. And we ended up, all of us, completely traumatized by that event, because what we realized is that actually, for all the things that we're, you know, senior people, directors of children's services, etc., for all the work we've ever instructed people to do, we missed the point. Everything missed the point. And I remember myself reading and hearing my team talk about what they were reading, and it suddenly struck me, never once did anybody remember that that was a person whose self-esteem had been affected by what had happened to them. So all the help we were given did not address that point. And wow. I want to tell you, we were paralyzed, traumatized, thinking all these years. And for me, I just thought something is missing. We've lost our way. We don't understand that these are human beings and that a child is affected by what has happened. And that's what happened to me. I went home, and for those 6 months, I just felt compelled to write this book, because what I knew was that I was a person. I'm a person. I was a child that was affected by my experience. And I hoped, you know, given who I am, given the what people think about me, because they would never know, as they say in the reviews of this book, that they can see that actually all of us go through things and we can survive it and thrive. But it gives us a special insight that not having gone through similar things, you could never have. That's why I did it. I couldn't stop myself.
Okay. And you were encouraged by your son. So you couldn't stop yourself. So it sounds like, when you say that, then it sounds like it was very straightforward, Pam. You wrote it and it was published. I know, we're both laughing because it wasn't like that.
It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Should we talk about what it was like?
Yes, let's talk about the process for you and your experience, really. Actually writing something so personal and revealing your life, parts of your life that you'd never shared before. So how was that, Pam?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I say that, but actually some bits were really easy. At the beginning of the book, I've always held on to the joy in my life, right? The things that I remembered fondly. And so it was really easy to write my early years.
Right.
Because I wanted to put that down on paper because I remembered it so lovingly. It was a great experience with this same aunt and uncle, great uncle who had brought me up, and in a loving context. So that bit was really easy.
Yes.
And actually, even the bit I just wrote to you just now, it was easier to remember it because that's another thing that never left me. The shock coming from, loving embrace, etc., to that attack remained with me. And I think psychologically, those are just significant moments in your life, isn't it? So I think for those bits, albeit I needed help to be as explicit in the journey, what I learned through the writing is to just say what happened rather than analyze what happened.
Yeah.
Right. And that's about the narrative, what she said, what I said, etc. And although clearly it can't be a perfect memory, but actually I remembered it. So those bits was easier to write. The most painful additional experiences, and you'll know about this, Marcia. I mean, I think I just wrote a sentence, didn't I? When I talked about the rape, it was, and I went to somewhere and I got moved on. And it was hard. It was really hard. And that's where I really appreciated what you did. When you helped me to understand, it's almost what you do with trauma, isn't it? You have the person to think about what it smelled like, what the colors were like, what the environment was like, etc. So that really helped me to talk about what I found almost impossible to do before then. But more generally, though, actually, I think that journey to put on paper, I'm a private person. I don't. Yeah. Anybody that knows me, and you'll see those reviews on Amazon, when they say we could not have guessed, there's nothing. Just I guess it's my upbringing and who I am, that would tell you that I'd had those experiences.
No.
Because I've had a lot of years, about 15 years of therapy that I chose to have. Yeah. And also, I'm not a person who wants to tell people about my life.
No.
I remember through this journey thinking, what I'm doing is opening my legs. I'm going to be really crude. It felt to me like I was opening my legs and saying to everybody, have a look.
Have a look. Yeah.
And that's not
frightening was that?
How
frightening was that?
It was a weird thing because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to. It's like when I had my son, I didn't want a nurse down there, much less. So literally. Yet. So
Pam, you didn't. You're a private person, but yet there was something that said that something inside you was driving you to tell your story. And just for the purposes of the audience here, that, you know, Pam's story goes from the beating to then a gang rape to then also sexual abuse within her family as an adult, by her father when she's a teenager. And also some of the other consequences, because she was a child that had been through these experiences, the knock-on effect on her confidence, her self-esteem, who she thought she was, what she thought she was worth. So it definitely had an impact on her relationships, I'd say, and just the way that you felt about yourself, isn't it, Pam?
Absolutely.
But then what I saw, Pam, through the journey of you writing and then getting it published, is that there was a transformation happening in you leading up to publishing. But then over the years thereafter, the couple of years or 3 years after, even more growth. So I don't know, Pam, if you give examples of kind of where you were and what has kind of happened as a consequence of you, as you say, opening your legs and showing the world, even though you're private. So yeah, back to you, Pam, because I don't want to take up your thoughts.
That's a perfect description of the journey, Marcia. The compulsion to write it because I felt it would help somebody.
Yeah.
The need, as well as the desire, the need in me to express what I'd kept inside throughout my life, apart from in the therapeutic context. What I know is that it's the best thing I could ever have done.
Okay.
Because the person I was before writing the book is not the person I am today. You know, when you have a lot going on in your head that you think you should be embarrassed about, that if anybody ever found out, they might judge you, and you might be ashamed, you know, the shame, and they might judge you. You're not the same person when you come out and you say, here I am, judge as you see fit, but I'm not ashamed of me. Because what happens before that is, I know some of the experiences I had at work or in relationships were inevitable now that I look back at it. Because if I'm somebody that's hiding and ashamed of being me and not the me I was when I felt loved, of course I'm going to attract people who can abuse that or manipulate that, because you know, we're never hidden, are we? People see, they see our spirit, they see our wounds. And actually, when you're carrying, which is what I was doing, when you're carrying a wound that you're really embarrassed about and think you don't want anyone to know, you allow certain things to happen. Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, the torture and the pain I went through, because the writing of the book was difficult for the reasons we talked about. Yeah. You know, when I saw my life on paper, and then I saw that I was the one leading the reader to judge me, right? By the words I was using. Yet my fear was that they would judge me. But then I saw that I am saying, please judge me. And so that was in itself therapy. Which is why I absolutely recommend it. I absolutely recommend everybody to go through the process.
Yeah. Pam, we went through a process, didn't we, of should we make it fictitious?
Yes.
Should we make it?
Did I call myself Anne?
Yeah. So we have copies of the book. We have copies of the book in the office where the name's Anne. You know.
Yes.
We played with using a different author name. And then something happened. So what happened for you to decide, you know something, I'm going to own this?
I think it was the journey. I think the journey from I'm embarrassed about it, but I'm still going to do it. I'm going to put it on paper, but it's safer if I don't call myself Pam. I don't know who I was going to say has published the book, by the way. But
true.
I wasn't thinking in that way. I was thinking we would write a story with, as we talked about this in the beginning, isn't it? We'll just, and you allowed that to happen. And what happened is there was a moment when I was all right about it, when I felt, what am I doing? What am I doing hiding?
Yeah.
It's my life, right? and it's okay. And I think that's when I felt okay about the book. And that's during the journey. I mean, in that context, it's just you and I reading it at that point. But I felt all right. That journey made me feel what's left to hide, really. Because I think it was a purging that made me think ultimately, why hide now?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what happened. We said it's Pam. We changed all the ands to Pam.
That's it. And you owned it. So you work, you work, you've got a very job with lots of responsibility. You run your own business as well. Mm-hmm. So how did you fit writing around the rest of your life?
Okay, I have to tell you that paralysis I described after having done that piece of work meant around for 6 months I was at home, not really doing that much. Certainly not wanting to continue to do that work that we'd been doing, because it didn't make sense to me now when I knew the answer, which is that we just missed the point of what we should be doing with children and with families. So I had the luxury of being able to not work for a little while. It didn't mean I spent every day writing it, by the way, because there were days I woke up and I'm not writing that. That's ridiculous. I'm not writing. What were you thinking, Pam? No, I'm not writing. And I'd be at home for, doing some other things. And then suddenly thought, no, I've got something to say. And I think that's the ultimate thing, the compulsion to say. When you know you have something to say, what greater medium than writing it?
Yeah.
Okay? Because you get a chance to look back at it as well and to adjust it and to get feedback. And that was it. I think being driven by something to say.
Yeah.
There's a point of which, by the time I went back to work, we'd done most of the manuscript. And you'd seen it. When I first met you, I had started it, didn't I? I had a kind of the bones of it.
Started at about, I don't know, was it about 11,000 words? I can't remember.
That's right.
And then built it, and then through a process, built it up to like close to 50,000 words. Over a period of months, really. But so I think, but you had laid that foundation. I think one of the things that you did do was that particular chapter that you've read, you had written that in such detail, and it was so well written that, again, for me, working with you, that encouraged me that Pam can write. Yet there were other sections, as you say, that were really, the trauma. That was trauma, but for the reasons you've said, you could write that. But then the other aspects were more difficult. And so we had to pull it out. But for me, I had the confidence in you to get it out, because you'd written such an excellent piece at the beginning, So for people, so Pam, you've written this book. Lots and lots and lots of people have bought copies of your book and given you feedback. How are you coping with the feedback? And where are you at? What change has occurred since your book's been out there and everybody knows your story? What has that done? I'm assuming that you're feeling very liberated.
It's funny, I went to, and I don't let people interview me now, right? I'll call it, I went to a conversation. Somebody said to me, could you come and see me? And I say that to just tell you the difference between how I was before and who I am now. And I walked into the room, and this guy said, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go again. They're going to ask me stuff about me. And he said to me, oh, no, I have nothing to ask you. I've read your book. I just want you to know if you'd like to do this. And that's quite interesting, right?
And that was an interview, that was a meeting about some work?
It was some venture capitalist trying to buy my company, right? Okay. And just that, I walk into the room with these two white men. And I'm thinking, oh, here we go. I kind of know what they're up to, etc. And that's how I was greeted. And so I just say that I'll leave that there. But in terms of what it's done for me, you know, not everybody's read the book, so you know that was a little bit of a weird thing for me. What it's done for me, let me tell you, I hinted at it earlier. There's nothing that I am lacking in confidence about.
Excellent.
Because I'm a coach as well, and my thing about confidence is that you don't feel all right about yourself, right? You don't feel that you're good enough, or you don't feel, in my case, I had so much that was hidden that is, according to me, I'm just, I'm 10% of who I am. The version of Pam is not the Pam that was a child that was all, feisty and doing this is this version. But by the time there's nothing to hide, that's who I am. I am in scenarios, and I have nothing. I have the greatest fun now because it's not about me. I'm not caring about that weight anymore in my mind, in my mental world. I can look at people and think about what's going on for them through the medium of knowing what's going on for me, but not because I'm hiding from it or I'm embarrassed of it and I'm not worked out about it. I can be in scenarios thinking, okay, this is just me. Let's talk about what you're talking about. So there was a liberation and a freedom that I cannot underestimate. There's just nothing that I'm afraid of. Definitely not in the way I used to be. There's nothing. And even, love came, right, in the end. And it came because there's a thing about just appreciating yourself and what you attract when that happens.
Yeah. That's
For
wonderful.
all those reasons, I cannot recommend and encourage taking that journey enough.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Pam.
Unexpected, right? It's not like I sat and I thought, well, at the end of this, I'll feel like this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that. It was torture. Sometimes going, what am I doing? Are you crazy? How are you showing the world this? And then to even the person that did a review of the book, to hear that there was nothing but love that came back, nothing but an appreciation of my strength, and nothing but value to the people who are reading it, absolutely worth it. To hear people say it resonates with me, it's my story too, thank you, I feel able now to share mine. That's not something I calculated. I think it might help somebody one day, and I didn't bargain for how much it helped me.
Yes, that's wonderful. That is so wonderful. And your book is helping people. It is, if you haven't read Clearwater, I recommend that you do read Clearwater. It is a book that Pam's story describes how she goes from the murky, so this weight that she's carrying, it's like she's in murky, dirty waters, and how she made that way to find her clear water. And I know feedback that we've had from readers and so on is that readers are also finding their clear water. Pam, that's been so informative and valuable to have this conversation and just to share, this masterclass, this webinar is about motivation.